Sam Eggington was all set to defend his IBO light middleweight title for the first time, and now there seems to be a certain Aussie boxing legend by his side. Not only that, Nikita Tszyu has finally spoken out about his fight against Jeff Horn, which left him in the hospital. The boxing world is truly on fire right now, and there seems to be just one man in the middle of it all. Let's dive in. First up, who's the Aussie legend helping Sam Eggington? Sam Eggington teamed up with boxing Hall of Famer Johnny Lewis to train for his fight against Dennis Hogan. This fight would be his first title defense since winning the IBO light middleweight title back in June, and expectations are high for the 29-year-old Brit. Johnny Lewis is widely considered one of the greatest boxing trainers in the world. He has coached 6 world champions, including Jeff Fenech, Jeff Harding, and Gary St. Clair. Lewis recently talked about his time training with Eggington. He said that all Sam really needs to do is work on his strengths, which include holding and mauling. Sam Eggington would need a lot of training to take on a challenger like Dennis Hogan, and Johnny Lewis seems to be the perfect fit. Funnily enough, Eggington didn't really know who Johnny Lewis was before he started training with him. He said that he didn't know much about Australian boxing in general, which isn't really shocking considering he grew up in Birmingham. But now that Sam has gotten a chance to see Lewis in action, he feels relieved to have the Aussie on his side. Up next, how did Sam Eggington's fight against Dennis Hogan go? There was a lot of pressure on Sam to perform against Dennis Hogan, considering it was his first title defense. With one of the greatest trainers in the world by his side, this should have been an easy fight for the Brit. Dennis Hogan's record leading up to this fight included 30 wins and 4 losses. Although he's Irish, he fought in Australia for most of his life before moving to the UK. That's why Johnny Lewis was picked to be Eggington's trainer. He knows the ins and outs of fighters who were used to the Aussie style. In comparison to Hogan, Eggington had a record of 32 wins and 7 losses. Overall, his record seemed a lot worse than Hogan's, but this was still anyone's match. But in the end, having Johnny by his side wasn't the blessing that Eggington had hoped it would be. He ultimately lost his title to Dennis Hogan via a majority decision. The fight lasted 12 rounds, and although this wasn't a unanimous decision, most analysts seemed to agree that Hogan deserved the win. Coming up, why did Sam Eggington lose? Leading into his first title defense, the odds were in Sam Eggington's favor. He had the right training and the right momentum, and it seemed like everything was going well for him, so why did he end up losing anyways? According to boxing legends Jeff Fenech and Barry Michael, it had something to do with the fact that Sam did little to no homework on his opponent before the match. It seemed like he was shocked every time Hogan even pulled a punch. He was completely unaware of how Hogan fought, and it wouldn't shock anyone if Eggington revealed he had never seen a single Dennis Hogan fight before actually facing him in the ring. Overall, he had a pretty awkward rhythm against Hogan. Normally, Sam Eggington's fights are pretty exciting, but this one felt like a chore to watch. Jeff Fenech seemed absolutely baffled at the live broadcast of the fight. He couldn't believe that Sam was fighting the way he was. Both legends praised Barry Michael during the fight, though. He was at the top of his game and perfectly countered everything Sam had to throw at him. It's a shame that this fight wasn't more exciting, but the blame goes entirely to Sam Eggington. Next, who else is Johnny Lewis training right now? While Johnny Lewis's training of Sam Eggington might not have turned out how he wanted, it wasn't really his fault. Instead, it was Eggington that refused to take the fight seriously, and in the end, he had to deal with the consequences of that. However, Lewis is training another champion right now, and he seems to be his primary focus for the time being. Nikita Tszyu is the son of one of the greatest Australian boxers of all time, Kostya Tszyu. Even though Nikita Tszyu might not be an official champion in any organization right now, to many, he's a mirror image of his father, and it's only a matter of time before he starts winning title belt after title belt. The pairing of Lewis and Tszyu isn't really that shocking. Both men are Aussies, and Nikita's father was also trained by Johnny Lewis in the early 90s. Nikita Tszyu is currently 23, and he has appeared in 3 boxing matches so far. He has an undefeated record, winning his first 2 fights via knockout and his third via unanimous decision. Coming up, Nikita Tszyu talks about some of his fights. Nikita Tszyu's first 2 fights could be any boxing debutante's dream. He won both of them in a dominant fashion, knocking out both opponents. However, before his third fight, he was in a bit of trouble. He'd gotten surgery on his ear due to an injury just 6 days before the fight and decided against revealing it to anyone. He said that he did it because he didn't want to take the credit away from Ben Horn, his opponent, if he won. Ultimately, Nikita Tszyu won the fight with a unanimous decision, but now he has admitted that he was in no shape to fight that day. He said that he was in a lot of physical pain leading up to the match, and he simply didn't want to disappoint the promoters by telling them he was injured. However, he didn't use this injury as a way to excuse his performance against Horn. Horn was widely praised by pretty much everyone for his toughness against Tszyu. He almost had the fight won, but it didn't go his way in the end. Tszyu also praised Horn, saying that he would have given him a tough time even if he wasn't injured. Following this, Johnny Lewis had some advice for Tszyu. Even though Nikita Tszyu now regrets fighting Ben Horn due to the physical condition he was in, his trainer Johnny Lewis thinks that it provided Tszyu with an opportunity to learn. He said that Tszyu needs to know that not everything will go his way during a fight. It seemed like, for the first time in his life, Tszyu was worried about losing a match, and even though he won, that scare alone showed him what he needed to do in a tight spot. Lewis also said that even the best boxers in the world have a hard time ending a fight quickly. It was bound to happen in Tszyu's career eventually, and the fact that it happened early is a blessing in disguise. Lewis gave Tszyu some advice, in the end saying that the young Aussie needs to look for just the right opening and think like a puncher. He said that boxing is sort of like a game of chess, and for Tszyu, it's time to play chess. He told the second-generation fighter to avoid hammering his opponents with punch after punch in hopes that one would hit. It was some solid advice, but did Nikita take it? Up next, Nikita Tszyu wins the fight against Dark and Dryden. Tszyu had been looking for an opportunity to prove himself once again after his disappointing performance against Ben Horn earlier this year. That opportunity finally came in the form of a fight against Dark and Dryden at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre. Like Nikita, Darkin is a fellow Aussie, and similarly, he won all of his fights. Both men were undefeated leading up to this match, but unlike Nikita, Darkin had knocked out all of his past opponents. It seemed like for the first time in Nikita Tszyu's career, he was the underdog. On top of that, his coach had given him the advice to sort of just abandon his regular fighting style in favor of playing a game of chess. At the start of the fight, it seemed like Nikita took that advice seriously. He tried to be calculated, waiting for openings, and played very safe. However, in the midst of the fight, something woke up inside Tszyu and he just started going to Dryden as if he had stolen his lunch money. It wasn't long before Dryden was on the floor and Nikita's hand was being raised by the ref. He broke one streak and extended his own in one of the greatest performances to date. Tszyu later joked about the chess comment in the post-match interview, saying that this was about as close to chess match as he could deal with. So in the end, Tszyu decided against taking his legendary coach's advice. However, it ended up working out for him, so no one's complaining. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Tszyu and Eggington are benefiting from their training with Johnny Lewis? Let us know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.